Okay, Coach Chat 3. So this week we're going to go over block running program, block programs as well. Ugh, can't even start already. Fuck, I'm still going to record though. Training blocks. How do we program training blocks? So today we're going to go over setting initial volume for a block. How do we do that and why? Transitioning from block to block. So the strategies we use on transitioning our lifters from block to block, different ways we can transition from block to block, what data do we look at or take into consideration, and then lastly, how do we gain momentum from block to block?
Yeah.
So, okay, first up, the question is, how do we set initial volume in a block and why? I don't know the why, but we'll just say how do we set initial volume for a block?
Well, I think initially for any block or any training period, we start with an introductory week, obviously.
Yeah.
So that's going to be really low threshold in terms of volume, intensity, everything. It's just going to start the athlete off in a really good spot so we can then, find what works.
Yeah. So I guess, do we have like, what determining factors will you have for you for like setting reps and set ranges and stuff like that?
Generally, I'm going to go off what an athlete gives me in terms of what's worked previously, what hasn't worked, how they have responded in the past, and how they think they respond. Then also, I may come back with, I've had someone very similar to you, built very similar, same kind of size, same kind of leverages, that this works. Potentially we could try this or find some kind of middle ground. That's generally how we'd find where to start with someone. We never come up with a perfect block to start with. It takes time.
100%. I think one of the biggest things that I've learned recently is you've got to know what doesn't work before you know what works.
Yeah.
100%.
So so sometimes it can be like working backwards. Like I've prescribed too much for people before initially and they just get beat straight away.
Yep.
And then, okay, I need to dial this back. I've also gone the other way and been like, not prescribed enough. And then they're not really responding as well because they're just too recovered the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah. So like, let's just say we've got, let's go with a lightweight female and a heavyweight female. What are some differences in the start of the block length start of the block that you might prescribe?
Definitely intensity.
Yep.
I generally can push a lightweight female through intensity, especially through back down work, a lot harder.
Yep.
Than a heavyweight female because potentially overall they're going to be lifting more load depending on the level of the athlete.
Yep.
But also there's more mass, there's more muscle as well that's shifting the weight. So we need to take all that into consideration. Recoverability factors as well.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, lightweight person is going to recover a lot faster so they can handle higher intensity thresholds.
Yeah. So one of the key things that you just mentioned then is recoverability. And I think that's really important to take into consideration when you are prescribing volume and intensity is thinking to yourself, how well will this person recover from what I'm giving them right now?
Yeah. So if we're going to start someone with singles or something, we might go, they could both be relatively easy for both person, the singles, but I'm going to push that back down work or, the volume a lot harder in the lighter weight female in this kind of situation right now. Just because I know that they'll be able to recover from it. But if we were on the other side with the other person, they're going to struggle to recover from that, especially if, they're squatting twice a week or something, or deadlifting more frequently.
Yeah. So if you get a lifter that came to you and said, I've always done 5 sets of 10 on my first squat day, will you program that and see how that goes?
I would. 5 sets of 10 is a lot. So I would probably be like, let's see if we can get the same kind of response and adaptations from a little bit less.
Yeah.
And, if they were only doing 5 by 10, work like, and they weren't doing anything prior to it, so they weren't doing, a top set of anything with that's higher intensity with more load and less reps. Potentially, this could be a factor to add in as well, where they might need, or we program that so then they can not show out as much on that 5x10 and not need it as much, because we can express strength adaptations through that top set.
Yeah, so that's kind of like the old less is more approach, really, and just taking that and figuring out how that works for that person.
Yeah.
So other than fatigue management and a less is more approach, is there any other rules that you would run by with setting initial volume for a block?
Not really, besides listening to the athlete themselves, just communicating with them.
Yeah.
We don't want to go too hard too fast.
Yeah.
Sometimes, starting out with someone, I might prescribe more of a load drop after a normal set, just because I need to see how they kind of load their weight, I guess. Like if they go too hard on that first set, if I were to just prescribe, straight RPE sets or straight load sets, is it too much? So I would rather that back then stuff to be a bit easier to start with.
Yeah. And how do you tell, like, if you've done this initial volume, right, how long do you give it before you go, oh, that's not enough, or that's too much? Like,
I'll leave it for a block.
Yeah. Okay. So you don't cut it midway through and go, fuck, I know I fucked this, or change it or anything like that. You never change it, because we need to know. We need to know. Yeah. We need to know, and you need to know at the end, like, how did that go?
Yeah.
And I feel like, if I feel like you get into that fourth or fifth, 6 week, the athlete will continue to tell you over and over and over again, I'm tired. Yeah. I'm tired. I'm tired. Do you know what I mean? So you're like, yeah.
And it's also like, if they're not responding, there's always a silver lining in a block. If something didn't work, we now know that didn't work.
Yeah.
And there's always going to be something that did work as well.
Yeah. And I think a really good example of this is what we were talking about yesterday with the deadlift that I pushed too much in that last block with one of my lifters. He still put 30 kilos on his total. So it wasn't all wasted, but now I know for this next time not to do that again. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess the answer to that question is with setting initial volumes is that you want to listen to the athlete. Number one, you want to ask them what they've done. Ask them where they've been, what their programs look like, and then you want to take into consideration their weight class or and their gender. Yeah. Those are probably the main ones. And if you've written a program that's worked really well for X lifter, and they've got similar leverages, and they've got similar weight class, and that. You could assume that you might want to start pretty similar with the block with the new person, correct?
Yeah, to an extent.
To an extent.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, one thing that we didn't touch on then as well is lifestyle factors.
Yeah, true. What someone does for work, everything like that. Are they in a relationship? Are they a parent? Do they have kids? Everything else that can play a role in training.
Yeah.
All these factors.
Yeah, definitely. And then I've got one lifter at the moment, and we're 5 weeks into a block, and she has told me that she's had to keep rushing through her second day because she's found that on that day she can't get out of work. So that just means that I'll change that for the next block, and the volume on that day will go down, and then I'll make it up on the other days.
Yeah, for sure. That's when we, if we want a performance in a main lift to show up on that day, you'd cut back accessories or something.
Yeah, definitely.
You don't want someone rushing through a session because, they can't get through out of work or something, and then they're rushing through their main stuff just to get to their accessories as well.
Yeah, exactly. You may as well just cut out a couple of accessories or ask them which day do you have indefinite time in the gym, And, that day might be one bigger day compared to the other days kind of thing.
Yeah. But this is where I will lead to kind of programming more of an SBD day for someone. Whereas if they have time constraints on other days, but they can go to a gym for 4 or 5 hours on another day, this is where we get like this SBD primary day on the weekend or something, where we just do more on that day because there's time constraints during the week. It's just far too much.
100%. Okay, cool. So I guess the answer to that question is you just need to take in a lot of different considerations for volume for a block and just try. That's what we're saying, is just try something.
Trial and error. Yeah. Trial and error is the biggest thing. It's what been discussing with quite a few people at the moment, other coaches as well. Is just you're going to learn from working with more people.
Yep.
The more trial and error, the more mistakes you make, everything like that is how you figure it out.
Yep, that's it. That really is. And working with different types of people who are quite similar as well. So you can, make differences and similarities between people as well. It really helps. And then just not being afraid to try something. I mean, if that person comes to you and they said that they've done 5 sets of 10 and they swear by that 5 sets of 10 and you give them 3 and it doesn't have that same response, they might need that 5 sets of 10.
Yeah, well, that could, that's where it comes down to how frequently were you doing this lift? If it was squat, was it only 2 times a week? Or so maybe we could, instead of doing 5 by 10, we could now do 3 on this day, but we could increase your frequency to 3 times a week so we can get a better response and you could come in more recovered to another session. And we can push more adaptations just through expressing strength because you're more recovered on another day.
Yep. 100%.
Rather than hitting 5 by 10 one day and then 3 by 5 another day or something.
Yeah,
we can spread it out more.
Exactly. Okay, so moving on. So this is one that I know that I've struggled with previously and really have learned a lot in the last year, is transitioning from block to block. So what are some common strategies that we would use when transitioning from block to block with volume and intensity wise and frequency stuff?
Don't change much.
Yeah.
That is my biggest thing, is just understand what worked.
Yep.
Try and figure out why it worked. And then, if it's one particular lift that didn't go well, try and figure out why that particular lift didn't go well. It may not have been the fact that you programmed it on the wrong days or you programmed it terribly or, you pushed too much volume or too much intensity or something. It may just be the fact that they weren't as recovered after another day. So if we use an example of someone's deadlift not responding as well as we want, potentially, if you were squatting them Monday and deadlifting them Tuesday, maybe they just need to deadlift Wednesday.
Yeah.
I know it could be a big change, changing a whole day, but you're going to be more recovered. You may need to adjust a few things in terms of when doing something. Yeah. But that's, you've understood that, they have this bleeding acute fatigue effect that's going into the next day. So we just might need to push it out another day or even do it on the same day. Yeah.
And if the lifter is in tune with what's going on, they tell you. Yeah. So they'll tell you, they'll say, I had one of my females say to me, my deadlifts feel trash on a Tuesday because I'm doing too much leg volume. And I said, great, we'll see it out for this block. And then I'm going to change it. And it worked really well, just listening to those things. So when you say don't change much, do you have a rule? Like, what if you do you ever start and go, oh, I shouldn't change this, but I will. Do you know what I mean? Like, do you have a rule on how many primary movements and how many secondary movements you would actually change?
I kind of work in a way of like levels, I guess.
Yeah.
So if I've got someone that's tempo squatting one block, I may just move that to a pause squat on the next block. My goal is to try and get that to a competition block, competition squat. I'm always looking forward 2 or 3 blocks, not just the next one.
Yep.
So, we have this bigger picture rather than this what's in front of us right now that we need to look at all the time. So like I said, I try and work my way in progressions through lifts from
Yep.
block to, rather than, because that's not a big significant change. It's taking away a few seconds out of a lift, and they're going to get, I've obviously programmed this tempo for a reason.
Yeah.
Now all I need is the pause.
Yep.
Okay.
What about changing the whole of the program in terms of, let's just say that the program, let's just say the program's right, but that the ordering is off. So
in terms of
fatigue,
the days or the specific day?
in terms of days are bleeding into each other.
Yeah, that's where we look at, changing maybe one day in a block.
Yeah.
Don't change all the days around. I have an athlete at the moment where we can't get bench to show up the day that we want it to show up, but we can get it to show up on a middle day.
Yeah.
So I have to change this day to get it towards the end of the week, because it's showing up in the middle. But I know how many days that he has between that middle day and the days preceding that where it's too much.
Yeah.
So, not enough. He's actually coming in really recovered and really strong on that middle day. So I need to then maybe revert back a day earlier in the week so we can get it to show up on the weekend. So he then has those 2 to 3 days that he can come and recover for that lift.
So you'll change the ordering of the bench press only?
Yeah, and only by one day.
Only by one day. Okay.
It sounds like a lot, but it's when I broke it down, it was only by one day.
Yeah, right. So that athlete, were they showing up in the middle day? Let's just say, was it a Tuesday or a Thursday?
Thursday.
So they were showing up on that Thursday because they had a day off on the Wednesday. Is that correct?
Yes. I think it was Tuesday and Wednesday. And one of the days we were benching, but we changed it just to DBs. And then it just started showing up.
Right. Okay.
We were benching too frequently the block before.
Yep.
We accounted for that. So we pulled back. Volume stayed the same. I spread it out a little bit more. And then changed one day just to dumbbells. Overall bench competition volume stayed the same in terms of how many sets they were doing.
Yep.
And then it started showing up on this once we took the other day earlier in the week away and changed it to just dumbbells, started these triples actually started showing up really, really well, to the point where basically it's the same as what he's hitting on a single on the weekend.
Really? Why do you think that was? Why do you think the dumbbells have improved it?
I think it was just taking away the comp specificity. Was just too much on the forearms, too much on the arms.
Yeah, I get that. Okay, cool, awesome. So you just moved. So you'll just change it, like kind of shuffle the whole week down.
Kind of, yeah.
Okay, cool, awesome. So in terms of that, then your rule, if it's a new block, you won't change anything else. You won't change squats. You won't change deadlifts because you've changed that bench press.
I may change the rep range in squats for this particular athlete, just because at the moment we're doing 10s. We're going to bring that down. We need to start expressing some kind of strength at some point, rather than just hitting volume all the time.
Yeah.
And deadlifts are moving really well, so I probably won't touch them. But yeah.
Okay, cool.
That'd be it, because if I do too much more, I'm changing far too much, and I don't know what's worked this next block.
Exactly. And I think what you just said was a really good comment, was expressing strength.
Yeah.
So when transitioning from block to block, one of the things that we need to remember is, if you're coming up to a comp, you need to get that athlete to express strength. So if you keep doing the 10s and you're 3 weeks out from a comp, probably aren't really expressing the strength that you need to with that block. Yeah,
for sure. Unless you get some, an anomaly that will squat 7s on a Monday that competes on a fucking Saturday.
Yeah.
But other than that, we need to pull it back a little bit somewhere in terms of how many repetitions they're doing. Else it will just, they're not loading enough weight, and they're coming so unpracticed in the skill of actually lifting heavy load that it's just, it just won't really work when we get to the platform.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so moving from transitioning block to block, we just talked a little bit about moving around exercises a fair bit. Do you have any tips or anything that you do when you're transitioning from block to block with about your rep ranges, with about, you said moving your tempo squats to a pause squat from one block to the other, obviously to express that strength at the end of the game, which is your 1RMs on the platform. Is there any other strategies that you use in terms of your sets and your rep ranges? Let's just say you've got 3 blocks in a row and those blocks are 6 weeks, 6 weeks, 6 weeks. Do you have any rules of thumb that you'll go from block 1, block 2, block 3 that you can go over?
Okay, so it's not really a rule of thumb, but it's kind of what are our goals for this block or these next couple of blocks. So like I said earlier, I'm always looking forward. So I think we've discussed this in another chat where I'll prescribe RPE on particular, if whether it be the back down sort of work where we can express some more strength, express everything, and then, or maybe it be, we're going to percentage base that back down kind of stuff so we can then use RPE and let the athlete choose their own like rating on that lift for their top set. So depending on what the goal is at the moment, is our goal to, we want the singles or whatever they're doing in there for adaptations and, strength exposure.
Yep.
But do we then want to not, maybe load cap them, percentage base them, all their top set stuff, but then just RPE work their bottom stuff. So it's not, so they can express it there more.
Yep.
So I think this is where it comes like, we'll do that for a block. So if I'm, let's say I'm going to do it where I'll percentage base the top stuff.
Yep.
So I'm prescribing flat load. People talk about load caps and RPE caps together, and it's like, just if you're going to do it, just prescribe percent, in my opinion. Just straight put the load there.
Yep.
Because in your head how much that person can lift. Their 1RM.
Mm-hmm.
You know that 72% for a single is fucking easy for them.
Yep.
But we know, if we're going to hit an RPE 7 back set, they may be able to express more strength because they've done less.
Yes.
So we then can do it that way. And then the next block we'll switch. We'll now RPE work this single. So we'll hit this single now as an RPE 6, 7, 8, which whatever way they're going. And the back down stuff, because we've expressed so much strength and we've gained so much momentum from this RPE work in the back down stuff, which is where we get stronger. We do not get stronger from singles. We get better practice.
Yeah.
So and then we change it later on that block. This is how I'm going to just lead into building momentum now, because this is how we're going to do it.
Yep.
So we are now working harder before in that back down stuff, which then leads into the next block where we kind of switch it around. So we can now percentage base the back down work and RPE work the top stuff. It gives the athlete more freedom to do that single. So then what we have now is we have this momentum that's built. It's, let's use myself as an example of what I did last block. My singles were not hard. I had not hit a hard single on any competition squat. I think I got up to 275, which wasn't really hard, but I was really, really pushing my back down stuff, like really hard. And then now this block, I've completely reversed it. And what we're doing now is my singles are now back to RPE and my back down stuff is percentage based. So my back down stuff's really easy, but because I've created these adaptations in the block prior through like kind of pushing, because I had the freedom of RPE in my program to do that with my back down stuff, I can now express this strength in my singles. It's taken a couple of weeks to kind of, get momentum there, but that was always going to happen. But that's how we played it, where we just kind of just rolled it into the next block.
And then, okay, so what are some rules? I mean, not rules, but how do you determine what percentage of their 1RM that you're going to start that at? Do you know what I mean?
It's going to be based on the athlete again, how much they lift overall, how much is really enough for them to kind of get this adaptation that we're creating as well, or trying to create.
Yeah.
Because it's just like I said, singles is just practicing.
Yeah.
So the more that we practice, maybe they don't need a heavy load. Maybe they just need it mentally or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
They
Yeah.
just need to show up for a single.
Yeah. Do you do the same thing on the doubles and triples? Will you flip it as well?
If I'm not running singles,
Yeah.
so not really. That's where I'll generally, that can just be RPE based work because, you know, they're not going to push it too hard. Athletes have it in their head where it's one by one, they forget the next column where it's the RPE.
Yeah.
They see one by one.
Yeah. And then you feel like, so what do you mean there? So like if they see one by one, they'll only push that and they won't push the rest.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
if you say, all right, we'll say again, I've got one by one at 215 kilos.
Yep.
And then we have 4 by 5 at 7, and then low drop after. That one first set of 5 at 7, they could potentially even do, you know, what 215, what they'd hit for their single.
Yep.
They're pushing this back down work harder and harder and exposing themselves more to you know, express it later on.
Yeah. So if you've got 3 blocks, in the first block you've done percentage base, was it first block's percentage base RP with back down, sorry, the first block's percentage base with back down RPE. The second block is RPE with back down percentage base. Third block, peaking, RPE.
Yes. Yep. You go RPE, because what we're going to do is we're going to push relative intensity. We're going to push relative volume. We're going to push everything up.
Everything up. Yeah. That's really cool.
And then, you know, we may end up prescribing more of load drops after that first set of back down. So if it's like, you know, if we go back to the 4 by 5s, 1 by 5, 4 by 5, we'll go 1 by 5 at 7, maybe minus 10 to 12% off that first set, because we're going to end up doing a lot. That person's going to end up doing quite a few sets towards the end, and it's going to end up being too much if it's just straight RPE or, you know, only a 5% load drop or something.
Yeah, that's where you have the bigger load drops and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. And transitioning from block to block with accessories.
Very individual again.
Yeah.
I don't change much.
Nah, same.
There's no real point. We generally leave accessories in for 2 to 3 blocks that are the same, and then even there's some staples that we'll just leave there forever.
Yeah. Yep.
It's just like, you need this. It's not really non-negotiable. We need to. You need to always kind of be in this position, or this is going to make you stronger. And, you know, we know it works, so we don't want to take it out.
Yep. What about peaking with accessories? Again, individual, who can handle it to the end?
Yeah. I'll generally leave them right in all the way into a taper week sometimes too, but I'll just back down how much they're doing. If it's my first competition with an athlete, I completely wipe the accessories, just because I don't want anything else that could interfere.
Interesting.
And, you know, a first competition with someone, I'm not really sending it on the day. We're not emptying the tank completely, because I just need to build that rapport and that confidence with that athlete so that they then trust in what I've done.
Yeah, definitely. I understand
so
that.
If I'm putting in accessories that, you know, I'm not certain on them, like the carryover that they're having on this particular day, that, you know, we don't need to do tricep extensions in the last week. You know, we don't need to do lateral raises or something like that, or belt squat potentially. Belt squat might be different.
When you're saying last week, you're talking about the taper week? You're talking about the last week of heavy stuff?
No, just the taper.
Taper week. Okay.
That taper, I'll wipe them. But athletes that I've been working with longer, I leave in more accessories, because I know that, you know, they're fine. We've been working together long enough. It's not really having too much of a bleeding effect on their main days, and they've created the necessary adaptations to get stronger, and they need this to still feel good on the day, because there's a fine line between having someone's peak show up and not show up.
Yeah. And when it
Um,
doesn't, when it shows up, it's like, oh shit, okay, that really worked.
Can run through this dude can run through a wall right now.
Yeah, exactly. I think what's really important to take home for accessories and when you leave them in and when you take them out is that's really individualized.
Yeah.
Like I've got one of my guys, Masters Lifter, who I'm going to take out his accessories a good probably 3 weeks out because he just gets really friggin' tired and it's just him. It's just him. It's just him.
If you're also, if we're starting to push relative intensity and volume, everything else up, they're getting tired from that. And it's just, these accessories just aren't really needed potentially for that athlete at the moment because, we're doing far too much in terms of competition stimulus. So we just strip it.
Yeah. I guess do you remember the old school way of powerlifting, peaking how coaches would take accessories out 4 or 5 weeks out from the comp and then keep dropping them every week?
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
I mean, I'll drop the rep range down. That's about it. Sometimes I'll push the intensity of accessories up on the way to a peak.
Yeah, it just depends. It depends. Okay, what data do we take into consideration when we're transitioning from blocks? So
a lot of performance trends.
Yeah. So when you're talking about performance trends, you're talking about what went up.
Yep.
What didn't go up, how the athlete felt about each lift. Is that another performance?
Yeah, that can work.
Yeah. What else are you talking about?
I guess understanding why something worked.
Yep.
I like to, once I finish a block with someone, I kind of put it all out in front of me and I'll look at it and I'll be like, hey, this was really successful. This was really successful. This was not so successful. This wasn't. And why and how much do I need to change? Sometimes we get that block where it's just like, fuck yeah, let's just run it back. That was perfect.
Yeah. One thing that I think that I'm struggling with at the moment a little bit with the same lifter with fatigue is we mentioned on the last week a little bit. I've ran the same block 3 times in a row, and I'm finding now that he's getting a little bit tired. So I feel like I need to drop some stuff out. Would you drop out volume first?
This can be where it's happening. What have they just gotten stronger and they're not used to lifting this load so frequently?
Yeah.
It can be something like that as well. This is where we need to start thinking really critical.
Yeah. Why is this not working anymore?
If we have this block that we know works, is this something that we can deviate from a little bit right now and just come back to later? Or is this something where we can do, as I discussed earlier, where you can pull back the relative intensity on either top sets or back down stuff and stop RPEing them and just percentage base them?
Yeah.
Make that intensity easy on their top sets, percentage base their top single squats, deadlifts, or top sets, whatever, on their squats and deadlifts, and make it relatively easy. This is the percentage that you're prescribing is going to be an RPE 5 all the time, pretty much.
Yeah.
And let them go a little bit on their back down stuff, but then, take a bit of a load, drop off their back down stuff a little bit more. Just let them recover. They may not just be recovering.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking what you just said, then letting them recover a little bit with idling weeks, not idling, just making sure that they can recover through one block and then taking that block and going again with it.
Yeah,
I think
just hit that minimum effective dose for a few weeks and just let it go. They need to recover. They obviously, they've progressed really well. If you're running 3 blocks back to back to back, they're shit's working. They've progressed really well. So there comes a point where we need to start, troubleshooting, thinking a lot really critical on if we're going to be able to just keep running this.
Yep.
How are we going to keep running it in terms of what needs to change on a programming end and how you can do it via, using the percentages and stuff like that. Because if we need to use RPE and percentages, and even, reps and reserves and RPE are a bit different themselves.
Yeah. Okay. Any other data other than, well, I guess it's like taking a block, looking at a block, what performed, what didn't perform, and then coming up with your ideas on why don't you think that didn't, why do you think that deadlift didn't perform or that squat didn't perform?
Yeah. Sure, how the athlete felt as well. I think we touched on that a little bit. How happy I am as a coach with how it went.
Yep.
And then, well, I guess where we're going to go from there is, although it's I guess we're taking data from a previous block, but we also need to consider, is this how I wanted it to end? Because I've been thinking ahead the whole time.
Yeah, definitely. I think with it too is understanding that each block will have a roll-on effect and affect the next block as well. Like just because this lifter of mine is saying that it is fatigued now, it doesn't mean that it's this block's thing. And you know how you said to just kind of like percentage base it for a little bit. I need to look back at what happened at the start of when the first block went really well. And I know for a fact that his deadlifts for about 4 or 5 weeks was hitting the same load. That gave him the chance to recover. So I'm going to repeat that again in that deadlift with that load and say, hit this for a few weeks, recover, and then we'll see how we go.
Or even, 5 kilos more because he is a little bit stronger now.
Yeah. And that's.
But 100%. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. That's good to get my head around that. Anything else that we look at when we're looking at data from block to block?
I mean, there's overall volume and tonnage, but that doesn't.
Do you look at that? A lot of programs have overall volume and base their like a lot of programs have like a tab down the bottom where the athlete is looking at their overall tonnage and creating and thinking that is meaning that they're progressing. Is that something that you use?
No.
I don't think so, eh?
No, it's not really. It's good to kind of look at, if you can look at it from six months or something, but week to week, block to block, not necessarily.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest downfalls of that, having that on the spreadsheet, is it doesn't take into consideration lifestyle factors.
Yeah, it also doesn't take into consideration how many repetitions someone's doing.
Yeah.
If I'm doing, 10s, my fucking tonnage for the week is going to be phenomenally larger than if I was doing triples.
Oh, 100%. And that doesn't mean anything, really. Like, yeah. Do you think that like, because I know that a lot of programs still take that into consideration. Do you think that is just kind of outdated data now?
I wouldn't say outdated. There's always use for everything.
Yeah.
It just depends on like how much you're relying on something like that.
Yeah. I'm sure it could work for if I'm just thinking out loud here. I'm sure it could work for like bodybuilding programs.
Yeah. I think it's also, it can work in a sense of if you are going to rerun a block later on down the track and you have all this data from preceding blocks or, from, months ago or something, or, even a whole macro cycle ago, and we're running a very similar block, you can then see like points there of how much someone's progressed because you're actually doing the same kind of block. You can have data points there that will tell you that, we've definitely progressed.
Yeah. Cool. So one thing that I wanted to ask you is, how do you determine like what is progression?
Oh, there's lots of different
ways.
Well.
We talk about like having data and having that data at the end of the block, but what is progression? Like, how do we determine, yes, that was progression, or then no, that wasn't progressed?
I guess that's where we need more blocks preceding that to know how you get to know an athlete. Okay, so you can't throw a block at me of someone I've never met and me know if they've made progressions or not, because I hadn't worked with them for preceding blocks or anything.
Yep.
So I guess we're looking at a lot of things. Load on the bar, obviously, because that's the biggest thing that we're trying to lift more weight. How the weight's moving.
Yep.
Technical. Okay.
Yep.
I go back to, I've programmed someone a tempo squat for a reason. Has it done what it's done? Does their competition squat now on their second day or their main day, is it like marginally better than it used to be because of this tempo variation that I've put in?
Yep.
Do I need to keep the tempo squatting to keep this kind of rolling, or can I now move to progress it to a pause squat or something?
100%. I think technical progression is one that's overlooked a lot.
Yeah.
Especially in secondary and tertiary days. Like, I've had some blocks with guys where they've made no progress on any of that load wise, but fuck, their lifts look better.
Yeah, for sure. And then we know in coming blocks, they're going to get stronger because they're more technically efficient now.
Yeah, especially on bench press. Like, one of the major things that I keep trying to hammer in is you don't need to max out every day.
Yeah.
Take one day a week where you're just like really making your pauses really good, making your setups really good, and all that stuff, because that stuff matters.
Yeah, well, with bench press, because we've obviously adopted this day and age where we bench more frequently. If someone responds to quite a high frequency of bench, we bench more frequently, and that's just the way it is. So I have this discussion with a lot of my own athletes where it's like, even if they're benching multiple singles, I kind of say, pick your day. And generally I want that to be the weekend day, but we need to pick it. So it can't be, if we bench, someone benches, let's say 3 singles a week, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday.
Yeah.
Maybe Tuesday can be relatively strong. Thursday, let's hold back. Let's dial in technique and let's really nail it. Or I may even, constrain that with a tempo or something on that single. And then Saturday, that's the day.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that it is to remember at the end of the block, not everything needs to progress weight-wise.
Yes.
Not everything needs to progress. Like, what's your rule of thumb with your accessories with progression? Like, do you try and get stronger at your belt squat, or do you just hit the same and just work on positions, or what do you do?
I do try and load more a bit.
Yep.
Belt squat's different because this is something really big for me in my competition squat, and it's also something that it's a plate loaded accessory.
Yep.
I find pin loaded and cable loaded accessories that I progress a lot slower because the jump, especially I do a lot of, single arm kind of stuff.
Yep.
It's a lot harder to jump a plate than it is to jump a plate on a plate loaded accessory like the belt squat.
Yeah.
So I do, but I only try and add 5 kilos or something a week.
Yep.
Not something ridiculous like 20 or something. It's the same sort of small progressions that I'd make in a competition with.
Yep. Okay, cool. Awesome. That's pretty much it for the data stuff that we need to go over. I guess what I was going with the last bit was knowing what you want to see progression in and knowing what you don't need to see progression in as much is really important.
Yeah, for sure. Like, if I use another accessory that, for an example, like a single arm cable row that I do, I haven't changed that for weeks and weeks.
Yeah. Definitely.
I need to, and I'm hitting the stimulus that I need. I'm hitting the upper ear that's prescribed.
Yep.
If I go up, I can't even finish the set. So
I think a lot of it's communication too. Like, the athlete sometimes doesn't know that the coach doesn't mind if this particular day stays the same.
Yeah.
And because I've had athletes come to me going, I'm not getting stronger on this day. And I'm like, and then I have to say, well, all of these exercises in this program on this day that I've programmed are quite difficult to get better at. Like, say stuff like Larsen press, And
yeah.
where it's okay to hit the same amount every day, but they end up beating themselves up over it. So I think it's really important to communicate that at the end of the block.
Yep.
And say,
and
during the block, yeah, like, you know, or sometimes like for me, I'll request videos on that day to see if the execution of that day is really good.
Yep.
Do you ever do those kind of things too?
I just tell people to send me videos all the time, so I don't really go out and request. I shouldn't have to request videos, I feel.
Yeah.
Sitting on the fence about that because I've had to do it a bit recently, and it's
requesting videos.
And I get a bit frustrated. Not like I'm not obviously getting frustrated at an athlete. I get frustrated because I feel like I can't do my job.
Yes. To any of our athletes who are listening right now who haven't been sending us videos, please send us more videos because we can't do our job.
We don't mind being spammed.
Yeah. 100%. Okay, we went over this a little bit before. I want to touch on it again, and I'm going to request that you do a little bit of drawing because I'm a very visual person as well as a lot of other people. How do we gain momentum block to block? So would you mind, if you've got a piece of paper or just turning around on the board, could you write on the board what you meant? Say, write it out in like a 4-week block and a 4-week block of the RP at the top and percentage down the bottom, and then flip it over.
Okay, I can try.
Yep.
I'll do it really quick, so I'll write it and I'll show you.
Yep.
Okay. So we're just doing a 4-week block.
Yep. And to those people who are listening on the podcast, I'm going to put this up on the YouTube so you can watch Steve do this on the YouTube as well.
So the first block where, say we're trying to create those adaptations through the back down stuff rather than the single. So we'll go. I'm just going to write this really simple.
Yep, super simple, just so people like me can understand because I'm very visual. So the first block, Steve's trying to create adaptations through the submax work.
Straight off the top of my head.
Yeah, that's fine. So he's controlling the top set by percentages. Can you just move it a little bit closer if you can, mate? Yeah.
I'll bring my laptop up closer in a second after anyway.
Yeah.
So if we're hitting 4s here, so we'll do, so it's going to be 3x4 the whole time.
Yep.
Okay, and then this is just. Right, so 6. And then, but we can also just do that, like what I said earlier, we can do that 1x4 and 8 and then low drop off the top. That's with any of them. Then if we go block 2, this is where we get.
And you're basing those percentages off the last 1RM that they've hit or the block previous top number?
The last 1RM that they hit, which hopefully is the last block if they were doing singles or something.
Yeah.
And they progress from there.
Yeah.
Now if we're doing 4s still here, we can do this one 2 ways, okay? Like this here is very, very submaximal. Those singles up there, I'd probably go higher. This is probably what I'd generally do down here. So if I change these a little bit.
Yeah.
Then we go here, we got
I see.
But we can also go, so what you can go is you can go, it could be like this too. One.
And then you're 72%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You carry that on top.
Because that gives them one set where they might be able to push it a little bit more or whatever.
Yeah. Do you want me to bring this up closer?
Yeah, bring it up. So I'll just talk through it. So we have the first set, the first block, he's got one at 81%, one at 89%, was it?
84. So I've just got, they're 3% up each week.
Yeah. So 81, 84, and then up to 90 for the last block. So the last week. So the first block, he's controlling the top single with percentage and letting the lifter decide the back down work. So the back down work is getting the adaptations. So that will lead to the next block where the lifter will have adapted with the submax work. So then they can express strength in the next block. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Cool. Now, the question for me for this one is, so with the back down work there, you've got 3x4 and you select the percentage base. That percentage base is individualized. Is that correct?
Yeah. So obviously if someone we know can generally handle more.
Yep.
Okay. This is where I go with the bottom option as well, which is where we RPE the first back down set.
Yeah. Okay.
And then prescribe percentage off that. It also depends on how much load someone's lifting. Yeah,
definitely. With what the percentages are.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That looks really good. Now, in terms of progressing beyond those two blocks, let's just say you've got 2 blocks there, you've got 2 more extra blocks. Would you run block 1, block 2, and then would you go back to running block 1 again and then block 2, or would you just progress from block 2 and keep running with letting the lifter express the strength into the comp?
I just let them go from there, and that's where I'd go with. So if I ran this one into this one,
yep,
I'd then definitely run it into this or this with 1x4 at 6 with minus 6 to 10% load drop off that first set.
Cool.
And then eventually we're building up. It's going to end up being, like a 6x4 or something at the end of it, and they need to drop off that first set.
Yeah, I got you. So the main thing there is you kind of kick-started momentum with the very first 4 weeks of that percentage-based work with that up.
We've created the momentum ourselves.
Yeah, I see that. And that's through that sub-maximal work.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's really good. So anyone who is listening to the podcast, you can jump onto the YouTube and watch how Steve just wrote that out. I think that was a really cool way of how a really good view of how to kickstart someone's momentum if you're lacking momentum at that time. Okay. Yeah. I think that'll do us for today. I think next week we'll probably go over a couple more of the questions we have from this week, and we're going to go over some deloads, what differences in deloads, and how to structure that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks very much, Steve.
Thank you.